You remember the light. That's what strikes you years later. Not the words, not the sequence of events, but the light, the color of it, the way it fell across the table, the weight of the silence between sentences. A feeling sat low in your chest, something heavy and final, and that feeling has never really left you. But if someone asked what was actually said, what clothes they were wearing, what time exactly they walked out the door, you would have nothing. The scene is vivid and blurry at the same time, saturated with atmosphere and missing its facts. This is not just about one breakup. You start to notice the pattern everywhere. You finish a book and someone asks what it was about. You hesitate. You can recall the emotional texture, the claustrophobia, the tenderness, the slow dread, but you cannot produce an organized summary. You leave a meeting and feel certain that something shifted in the room, that an alliance cracked or a decision was made beneath the words. But when asked to repeat the data points, you draw a blank. You return from travel, and your memory of the city is not a list of monuments visited. It is light temperatures, street smells, a certain kind of loneliness on a Tuesday afternoon, the feeling of standing somewhere new and somehow meeting yourself there. And because nobody around you seems to share this exact pattern, you develop a quiet theory about yourself, that you are not paying close enough attention, that your memory is faulty, that you live too much inside your own head. You have probably been told some version of this. A partner asks, "Were you even listening?" A teacher writes, misses the main point. A colleague looks at you with faint impatience and repeats their question, slower this time. And here is the part that hurts most. You cannot explain that you were listening, that you were absorbing more than they can imagine, because your brain was tracking the shape of the argument, not its footnotes. It was mapping the emotional weather, not recording the exact wind speed. I want to pause here, because a specific kind of shame lives in this gap. It's the shame of watching someone's face harden with disappointment when you cannot produce the detail they asked for. It's the shame of being caught in a meeting, realizing you absorbed everything important but cannot cite a single number, and feeling the room silently reclassify you as unprepared. It's the shame of a loved one saying you never remember what matters, when the truth is you remember exactly what matters, just not what they think matters. Over time, you absorb this verdict. You start to call it poor memory, scattered attention. Maybe you even wonder if something is wrong with you. But what if nothing is wrong? What if your memory is simply running different software? Your brain, at the moment of encoding an experience, makes a split-second decision about what to store. Every sense is flooding in data, words, colors, sounds, micro-expressions, the temperature of the room. And your cognitive system cannot keep all of it. It has to triage. For some minds, the triage unit is hyper-attuned to discrete facts, the sequence of words, the numbers cited, the exact timeline. Those minds store experience like a transcript. But for other minds, yours, the triage unit is looking for something else entirely. It is scanning for meaning, for emotional weight, for the relational pattern that will allow you to navigate similar situations in the future. Your brain does not ignore the raw data because it is careless. It moves quickly toward the interpretation layer because that is where the signal feels most alive. Think of it as the difference between a photographer and a painter. The photographer captures everything: the wrinkles on the tablecloth, the position of every glass, the particular shade of someone's jacket. The painter does not care about any of that in the same way. The painter is there for the light and the mood, the tension between figures, the one essential feeling that will survive long after the details have decayed. You are the painter. Your memory is not failing. It is operating under a different set of aesthetic instructions. You can see this distinction play out in ordinary moments. A few years ago, you attended a dinner party. If a photographer's memory had been at that table, it would have recorded the seating arrangement, the menu, the names, the exact hour someone arrived. But your memory recorded something else. The suffocating politeness that never quite became warmth, the way one couple avoided looking at each other, the relief you felt when the evening ended. You cannot name half the people who were there, but you can still feel that room. Your brain decided in real time that the emotional signal was the valuable part. And for you, it was right. This system does extract a cost. You may lose the receipt, forget the date, misplace the number someone expected you to hold on to. You may let someone down who needed a fact, not a feeling, and then carry that failure longer than they know. The world runs on details, and you will sometimes feel like an immigrant in a country where everyone else speaks the native language of precision. But the cost sits beside a set of quiet, profound rewards. You know a friendship is ending 6 months before it ends, not because of anything said, but because the silences change temperature. You walk into a room and read its emotional grammar within seconds. Who holds power? Who is protecting whom? Where the hidden exits are. You develop intuitions that feel almost physical, and you learn to trust them because they are rarely wrong. You are not just moved by art or music, you are altered by it. The granular data you lost bought you access to a layer of reality that lives underneath the facts. The place where a moment reveals what it meant before anyone has the language to say it. And still, you were punished for not speaking the other language fluently. This is where the turning point arrives, and it arrives with both grief and relief. The grief is this: you have spent years measuring your memory against a standard that was never designed for your operating system. You have called it a failure, when, in fact, your brain successfully completed a higher order task again and again. It captured the emotional thesis of an experience. It abstracted the relational pattern. It stored what the moment meant. And the relief, when it finally arrives, sounds like this. You did remember the breakup. You remembered exactly what mattered about it. The feeling of something ending, the light going a certain color, the particular quality of silence that means goodbye. Those are not the accessories of the memory. They are the memory. So what do you call this? You are not a person with a bad memory. You are a highly associative rememberer. Your mind organizes experience around emotional nuclei, around theme and pattern and atmosphere. When you recall something, you are not pulling up a file. You are re-entering a world. This is not a consolation prize. This is a cognitive style that feeds intuition, creativity, deep empathy, and the ability to make sense of complexity without reducing it to bullet points. It is why some people can analyze a problem for hours and get nowhere, while you sit with it, feel its contours, and arrive at the right answer without being able to explain every step. This does not mean the world will suddenly stop asking for details. It will not. There will still be meetings where someone needs numbers and not your sense of the room. There will still be conversations where a loved one wants you to repeat back not just the feeling of what they said, but the actual words. And this is where the mature work lives. Not in fixing yourself, in translating yourself. You can tell someone, I may not remember the exact words, but I can tell you what I felt you were trying to say. You can learn to carry a notebook, not as a crutch, but as a bridge between your way of processing and a world that sometimes needs the details. You can stop apologizing for your memory and start describing it accurately. You were never bad at remembering. You were remembering something else. Something that, for you, was always more significant. And if you can begin to trust that, to treat your memory not as a defective transcript, but as a faithful, emotional archive, then every foggy, luminous, detail-poor memory you have ever felt ashamed of begins to look like what it truly is. That memory of the breakup, the one with no words and no timeline, just the light and the silence and the weight in your chest. That was never a failure of recall. It was a record of what a moment meant, saved by a mind that knew the difference. If this gave you a quieter way to understand the way you remember, subscribe, and stay close to this kind of re-narration.